afternoon, and thank you for joining us here today for this exciting announcement. We are gathered today on the traditional territory, the signatories of Treaty 7, and I acknowledge the Métis people who share a deep connection with this land. My name is Shannon Phillips. I'm the NDP Official Opposition Finance Critic, and I'm joined today by the Energy Critic, Kathleen Ganley, and the MLA for Calgary Mountain View, Municipal Affairs Critic, Joe Hosisi, and of course our leader, Rachel Notley, who you will hear from in just a minute. You know, for generations, Alberta has been a destination of choice for global investment, which led to robust economic growth, low unemployment, and some of the best paid jobs in the country. Due to the strength of our energy sector, a strong and stable royalty structure, and to the global spike in oil and gas prices, Alberta's GDP has now rebounded. But unlike in the past, this isn't translating to good jobs and good wages. Unfortunately, Alberta has among the slowest wage growth since the beginning of the pandemic. And capital investment in the province is stalled. This matters because without sustained high investment, we won't have future high-paid and high-skilled jobs. We risk losing people and expertise and our high wages and Alberta advantage. Now, right here in Calgary, downtown office vacancy rates still hover around 30%. That's the highest in the country. And at the same time, Alberta has a massive opportunity to be hands down the best and the easiest place to do business and to invest. We have been in a similar situation before. During the energy crisis of the 1970s, Premier Peter Lougheed set Alberta down a path that created decades of economic growth and job creation through the creation of the Alberta Oil Sands Technology and Research Authority that drove the development of new technologies. We can, and we must, do this once again in a strategic way that addresses the challenges of today and sets us down to the path to prosperity. So it's within this context of a rapidly changing economy and a great deal of uncertainty that we have launched the Alberta's Future Project to engage with Albertans on how we can build a more resilient economy. To date, we have engaged with over 250,000 Albertans on a range of economic topics. Through this process, we have heard clearly from Albertans and from the business community that they want a return to stability, predictability, and certainty, along with policies that incentivize investment and restore competitiveness with other jurisdictions. Which brings us here to today. And for more on what an Alberta NDP government would do, I will now turn things over to our leader, Rachel Notley.
Well, thank you very much, Shannon, and thank you as well to Joe and Kathleen for joining us. And Shannon, you know, you're absolutely right. Alberta's NDP is committed to reinvigorating our economic investment climate in this province. There are massive investment and job creation opportunities which we're not currently seizing, and that needs to change, and fast. We've seen the historic investment incentives in the United States Inflation Reduction Act, and make no mistake, this act is pulling billions of dollars of investment south. Alberta and Canada must compete. Now, as Peter Lougheed did in the 1970s with the oil sands, an Alberta NDP government will partner with and support private business to deliver the exact things that Alberta and global capital investment markets tell us are needed. And today, we are releasing part of our plan to do just that. The latest in our Alberta's Future proposals, our competitiveness, jobs, and investment strategy for Alberta. We're making 5 proposals that will create over 45,000 good-paying jobs and attract an estimated $20 billion in capital investment to build a long-term, resilient economy. So first, we will repeal Danielle Smith and the UCP's Job-Killing Sovereignty Act. This act is only creating instability and uncertainty in our economy at a pivotal time. We simply cannot afford this, and so we have to repeal this act and stop it from acting as a barrier to jobs and job creation for Alberta families. Second, we will maintain the most competitive general tax rate in the country while establishing and re-establishing and enhancing tax incentives focused on new growth and new jobs. We've already committed to reinstating the Alberta Investor Tax Credit and the Interactive Digital Media Tax Credit. And today, we are announcing that we will establish the Alberta's Future Tax Credit. This is a refundable tax credit of up to 30% that targets large capital projects in emerging industrial sectors like critical mineral processing, alternative fuels, and advanced manufacturing. It's different than the proposed Alberta Investment Tax Credit, which is targeted at angel investors in startups and small innovative companies. We'll increase the value of this credit by another 10% for investments that generate key outcomes like high-skilled job creation or new technological capabilities and innovations. Based on similar incentives in the Inflation Reduction Act in the USA, Alberta's Future Tax Credit is estimated to cost $250 million annually, which will leverage a projected $10 billion in incremental investments in emerging sectors and will create an estimated 20,000 jobs. Third, we are announcing that we will expand the Alberta Petrochemical Incentive Program. Now, this program was actually started under our government, but it was renamed and modified a bit under the UCP. We will grow the program by 30%, or about $70 million, to expand eligible feedstocks and final products, and to bring partial upgrading back into the program after the current government removed it. This is a direct incentive that recognizes and rewards Alberta as an energy superpower and expands our know-how and traditional oil and gas sector to new ventures, new products, and frankly, value add. By supercharging this program, we expect to attract an incremental $10 billion of new investment and create 27,000 jobs. Fourth, part of our commitment to economic stability is to keep programs that work. In a number of conversations that we have heard that the Alberta Indigenous Opportunities Corporation is a promising approach to building Indigenous equity and ownership. Indeed, we supported it when the UCP first introduced it. So what we will do now is we will consult with Indigenous communities on the possible expansion of the AIOC. And we will seek perspectives on expanding the AIOC to small or intermediate scale projects or projects in areas other than energy. Finally, to fully maximize our investment and growth potential, we must increase regulatory certainty. Today, in addition to getting rid of the Sovereignty Act, we are announcing that we would also speed up the regulatory process through the creation of a new Performance Fast Pass. The Performance Fast Pass is really quite simple. If a project proponent has a strong record of good behavior when it comes to protecting workers, environmental compliance, paying their taxes, and other criteria that we will establish through consultation, then your application will be processed sooner and your project could be operational faster. We believe this program will help us get good projects that will create jobs and get them off the ground faster, while also providing new incentives to keep workers safe, pay off the millions and millions in unpaid taxes owed to municipalities, and maintain our beautiful natural landscapes. Think of it almost as a type of nexus pass for businesses wanting to succeed here. So, these are the elements of our investment attraction strategy. Repeal the Sovereignty Act, create an Alberta's Future Tax Credit targeting growth in emerging industrial sectors, an expansion of the Alberta Petrochemical Incentive Program, consulting with Indigenous communities on the expansion of the Alberta Indigenous Opportunity Corporation, and putting in place a Performance Fast Pass to speed up projects for responsible companies and investors. Today's competitiveness, jobs, and investment strategy adds to our 11 existing Alberta's Future papers that include everything from growing the tech sector to building universal broadband across our province. Today's announcement is described in more detail in our paper that will be found at www.albertasfuture.ca. We hope people will check it out there and give us their feedback. We will also be consulting on this new strategy with industry starting tomorrow, and with the general public early in the new year. We are at a pivotal moment. The decisions we make today will have a long-lasting implication for future generations. We simply can't afford to continue looking to the past. We must build on it and look towards the future with ambition and determination and, of course, hope. By doing so, I'm confident we can restore our competitiveness, We can attract investment, we can build a resilient economy, and we can create good paying jobs now and for future generations. That's what the competitiveness, jobs, and investment strategy that we have come together to lay out today is all about. So thank you, and we're all happy to take any questions that you might have.
Okay, we'll start with questions in person.
Oh,
Don't mind just sit around, use the mic, get a question.
and folks, just so you know, this is the paper. Here we go, right here today.
Thanks, Tim Burke with CTV. Hate to be the buzzkill here, but I want to ask about something else. And that's the Premier's comments yesterday in the legislature regarding Ottawa, First Nations, and the way Alberta is being treated. I'd just love to know what you think about that comment and if you find it insensitive or not.
Well, I think here's the thing. You know, Alberta and Ottawa have a long history of having a relationship that can sometimes be tense and somewhat combative. However, to suggest that Albertans have been subject to a genocide at the hands of the federal government is not only ridiculous, but it is deeply diminishing to the real life experiences of Indigenous people across our country and in our province. And so Danielle Smith must immediately stand and apologize for the insensitivity and the outrageousness of those comments. We cannot engage with that kind of hyperbole, and we cannot continue to be so deeply insensitive and tone deaf to the experience of Indigenous people in this province.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up on that. Just moments ago, the Treaty 6 chiefs met with Danielle Smith. They sent out a statement about that meeting. They essentially said that a lot of what's being done right now in the province that involves them, she's not consulting with them. You mentioned an apology there. Is there anything else you think Danielle Smith needs to do to really repair this relationship and move forward in a healthy way? Well,
absolutely. I mean, I was very pleased to be invited to meet with the Treaty 6 chiefs at the same meeting yesterday. And we talked, of course, first off, about the Sovereignty Act. And they said it needs to be withdrawn. They said it's not enough to talk to them after the fact. They should have talked to them beforehand. And she very intentionally chose not to do that. But in addition, what she needs to do is understand that her whole approach thus far has been to fail to engage with treaty chiefs in advance of major announcements or initiatives that impact them. And so, you know, it's a whole way of doing things that, quite frankly, she needs to change. But in terms of specific things, an apology for those outrageous statements she made yesterday, and pull back on the Sovereignty Act, and actually engage in meaningful consultation with treaty holders here in Alberta.
Thanks. Any other questions in person? Okay, what a question on the line. Just a reminder, if you're joining by Zoom, to use the raise hand function, and if you're joining by phone, to press star 9. Go to our first caller.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, you start over again?
Hi, Janet French from the CBC. Can you hear me okay?
Sure can, yeah.
Okay, great. Sorry, that's not my actual question. My question is, interesting to hear you mention the performance path for energy companies. That might be like a carrot to incentivize people to do the right thing, but I'm curious what mechanism you would consider as a stick for unpaid property taxes.
Well, so to be clear, the regulatory and the performance fast pass is not just limited to energy companies. It's something that we're offering to companies across the board, regardless of the sector within which they work, but where there's a significant regulatory element of their development. Certainly, when it comes to specific energy companies that are not paying their municipal taxes, we do need to be looking at a range of strategies, probably going back to the AER and looking at ongoing permitting until such time as these taxes are paid. It is not acceptable that you know, we've got hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars not being paid while the companies are still out there, you know, earning more. And so that is certainly something that we have said before, and we would look to engaging with the AER going forward on fixing that problem.
Did you follow up, Janet?
I do. So this morning we actually heard from Minister Lee Corner that he is looking at changes to AER's mandate and potentially having them collect data from municipalities to take action against companies that have outstanding property taxes. We don't know what action that is yet. I'm wondering what you think of how the government has handled this issue so far, and what you think of that pledge that now they're going to actually delve into what powers the AER could have to help encourage people to pay those outstanding taxes.
Well, I guess my primary concern is that, a few months before the election, the government, this government in particular, has a tendency, conservative governments, has a tendency to rediscover issues that they've been very intentionally ignoring for some time, and make a lot of promises on the eve of the election. Again, what he's talking about is not unreasonable. It's what should, though, have been happening for some time. This problem has not existed just for a few days or a few weeks. It's been going on for years. And so they should be stepping up, and should have potentially been bringing in legislation to deal with that in this session. Excuse me. Instead, what we're seeing is they're thinking about maybe doing some stuff in the future and maybe collecting some data. So that doesn't sound to me like they're jumping to the pump. It sounds to me like they're putting off a resolution until after the election.
Okay, we'll go to our next caller. Go ahead, Corey, your lunch due.
Hi there, Corey with CDC Network. You spoke about the statement by Danielle Smith in the House yesterday, but I'm wondering as well, there's a video posted by the Advanced Education Minister that references a book that espouses colonial and racist views. And I'm wondering what your reaction is to these types of examples that they're using to justify the Sovereignty Act.
Well, again, I think it speaks to a level of insensitivity, a tone deafness, a lack of really truly caring about these issues throughout the UCP as a whole. We've often said, it doesn't matter whether you're talking Jason Kenney or Danielle Smith, the fact of the matter is that institutionally there are some very big blind spots within the UCP, and this is a clear example of it. And some of them, spend just a little bit too much time dabbling in the same circles as folks who have some deeply offensive and racist ideas. And I think that they need to start checking themselves and questioning the sources for some of the information that they share. And in the meantime, where they end up saying things that are offensive on that basis, they need to be willing to make apologies. And I would suggest that the best place to start that is at the top with Danielle Smith, very clearly apologizing to Indigenous people across this country and in Alberta. She ultimately was forced to do it to the Ukrainian people. I believe the diminishing tone she took with respect to Indigenous people across this country deserves exactly the same response. But hopefully this time she'll do it right away.
Good call, Corey.
No, thank you.
Any questions online or in person? And seeing none, that's all for today. Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.
Much for watching, and to learn more, check out albertasfuture.ca.